This video is going to be longer than usual as I am recording on a Saturday. I usually record in the weekday when I'm working, but I actually have a completely free day today, so I wanted to sit down and record some longer videos because I do miss doing like hour-long videos. But my phone, I'm waiting for my iPhone 17 Pro Max to come. I'm currently on the iPhone 12. I don't upgrade my phone often, but it is definitely overdue an upgrade because the battery is terrible. I've just sat and recorded one-hour video, which is Thursday's video, which you may have seen by now, and it's gone from 100 to 38%. So I may only be able to record like half of this, and then I may have to record the other half later when my phone charges, or whenever I next get the chance, like Monday or something, to record. So I don't know, but we will get as much done as we can. I mean, nothing will change for you guys, so I don't know why I'm mentioning it. Let's just get started. This first one is by J Group. G-U-R-P-E Group. It's titled Freckles, the Not Very Imaginary Clown. Did you ever have an imaginary friend when you were a kid? I did. His name was Freckles the Clown. He had red fuzzy tufts of hair jutting out of the sides of his head at odd angles. His eyelids were painted blue and his face was painted white. He had a red nose and lots of freckles. The freckles weren't just on his face either, but all over his clothes and arms, like a million little misshapen polka dots, all like blood splatter. When I walked home from school, Freckles would tag along. I don't have many friends, only one or two, and they had other friends who they spent most of their time with. So I was left alone with Freckles. We'd splash through mud puddles together in the spring, make piles of leaves and dive into them in the fall. We'd make snow forts in the winter and snowmen to guard them. I never had many real friends, but I was never lonely as long as Freckles was around to keep me company. But what I didn't know was that Freckles was a jealous imaginary friend. He didn't like me hanging out with anybody except for him. One day at school, I made a friend. A real one, not invisible like Freckles. A kid named Peter started talking to me during recess. We were both playing on the jungle gym when I saw his South Park t-shirt. I complimented him on it and said that was my favourite show, even though technically I wasn't allowed to watch it. That seemed to be enough information for him to decide I was okay. He told me that a bunch of his friends were coming over that weekend for his birthday party and invited me to come. I looked around to see where Freckles was, since I always looked for his approval. He was nowhere to be seen. It was like he had just vanished. I told Peter I'd be happy to go to his birthday party. He gave me his address and told me to be there Saturday around noon. An extra invitation was in his backpack and he gave it to me at the end of the day, hastily filled out with my name, misspelled, but that was okay. I was actually invited to a birthday party for the first time in my life. I couldn't believe it. The rest of the week I was so excited about the birthday party, it was all I talked about. My parents, my teachers, to everybody Saturday came, finally, and my mum drove me out to Peter's house. She dropped me off and gave me a kiss on the cheek, telling me to be good before driving away. I went inside, found a bunch of kids from my class who were already there playing pin the tail on the donkey and wearing pointed cardboard hats covered in polka dots. "Hey, look who's here," Peter said when I got inside. He introduced me to his other friends who pretended to meet me for the first time. It was weird because I had seen them all in school for years, but they acted like I was new to the neighbourhood or something. It didn't bother me though. I was just excited to be included for once. "Did you bring a jacket?" Peter asked. "We're gonna go out in the forest and play paintball with slingshots." It turned out his mum had bought a jumbo container of paintballs and a dozen slingshots for his birthday party, since that was what he wanted to do more than anything on his special day. What a great mum. I had indeed brought a jacket with me, and I put it on after we had eaten lunch. I was stuffed from the kid-friendly spread consisting of pizza, Pepsi, and ice cream cake. The 10 of us went outside and made our way to the nearby forest. It's funny, these days stuff like this would probably never fly, giving kids slingshots and projectiles and sending them out into the forest to have fun. But that's how it was back then. Nobody thought anything of it. We all split up for the free-for-all match and agreed we would meet up again where we started, at the entrance to the forest, once an hour had passed. The ground was muddy, and fallen leaves covered the forest floor as I walked around by myself, no longer feeling so lonely. Everyone had scattered through the forest. Strangely, I didn't see anybody for a while. Even Freckles had disappeared on me. I wondered if maybe he was mad that I was making new friends, but he had seemed excited about the party the day before. It didn't make sense. The whole hour went by and nobody shot a single paintball as far as I could tell. There were no joyous yells or playful insults ringing through the trees. It was dead silent, in fact, as if even the birds had become mute or had fled the woods entirely. Silence permeated everything, and the sounds of my boots crunching through the leaves was all I could hear. A full hour had passed, so I went uneasily back to the forest entrance, unsure what I would find there. Part of me thought that maybe everyone had ditched me and run for the hills, realizing how much of a loser I actually was. Nobody was at the forest entrance. All the kids were still out there somewhere, roaming the woods. My unease growing more and more with each step, I began to search for them. I didn't know why, but a knot of worry was growing steadily in my belly, getting larger and heavier by the second. It took a while to find them. They were all together, so that made it easier. I was drawn in by the sound of someone chewing something stringy and wet, like an animal. The sounds of teeth snapping cartilage and chewing gristle became even clearer as I drew nearer. Freckles was crouched and perched on a log like a wild primate. He was covered in blood and stripping the flesh from a piece of bone, licking his lips when he saw me. An overjoyed giggle poured out of him. information. My findings might have led to blowing the entire clown sensation wide open, all because of my bravery. I'd be a hero. At first, my town seemed to be a sacred land that no clown dare touch. It was a God-fearing, blue-collar town where everyone knew their neighbours, and the postman could eat for an entire week thanks to the housewives and their generosity. There was one school, a Baptist-run institution that, surprisingly, focused more on education than religion. Everyone who has ever lived in that town went to that school, just like everyone here got their first job at the window factory. It was simply how things were. Some call it trade, we call it home. Sure, there was crime. One time, for example, the little Daxterly's oldest boy lashed out and broke 3 windows at the church. It was all over the news and the papers. People would gossip, of course. However, no one chastised him for his actions. Instead, everyone was supportive and got him the help he needed. I'm not trying to brag. This was just a genuinely pleasant and nurturing community. When the news broke that a clown was seen sitting on the steps of the school the other night, it sent a ripple through the calm town. Everyone had been following the stories, yet no one was concerned of seeing them here. Why would we be? We all knew it was a prank, albeit a stupid one, that would fade away into obscurity. It was chalked up to the Daxterly boy lashing out again, until the next sighting, and the next, then another, then 2 clowns together. It wasn't until a dog was found mutilated in the middle of the town centre that the population collectively began to panic. Curfews were enforced, shops closed early, school and church service was reduced to twice a week. Had someone passed through after dusk, they would have found a ghost town. Fear was running the town now. I wanted it to stop. My plan was simple. Every night since the first incident, the clowns had been seen on the school grounds or the church grounds. All I would need to do was stay out of sight of the sheriff while I waited to see a clown. Then simply run up on it and find out what the hell they're in the town for. Easy. Darkness had fallen in the night, and I made the decision to act. I've never believed in guns, nor taking a weapon to an unarmed fight, but I have to admit, the hysteria was beginning to grate on me at that point. I went out with a wooden Louisville slugger and a flashlight. It was slightly after 10 p.m, and most of the residents were already sleeping in hopes of seeing daylight sooner. That made it easy for me to avoid the sheriff, as I was able to cut through backyards and hide in driveways when the patrol cars got too close. This was a small town. On a regular night I could walk to the school in less than 10 minutes, but the law enforcement wasn't taking any chances. It took me almost an hour to reach the school, and when I did, I was upset to see nothing waiting for me. Nothing. I posted up in a nearby tree that had a clear view of the front of the building and got comfortable. Something in my gut told me I was going to have a long wait ahead of me. I wish I could say that a few hours into my shift a clown came, and I was able to get my answers. I really do, but I fell asleep. I woke up on the lawn under the tree to blinding daylight and a gun in my face. The officer was stern and visibly shaken, but nice enough to me. At the station he gave me coffee and a nice selection of pastries and fruits to choose from for breakfast. In other cities this might be seen as them buttering up a suspect to get them to talk, not here. This was Southern hospitality at its finest. We talked for a while about everything going on with the clown situation. The conversation wasn't focused on my actions like I had expected. The officer was more interested in what my thoughts were on how to deal with this clown situation that was currently paralyzing the town. I think he saw my actions as more brave than incriminating, like I wanted. I could still be a hero. After a couple hours, we came to an agreement on the situation. The sheriff's office would turn a blind eye to any investigations I wanted to conduct alone, even after hours. Would turn a blind eye to any investigations I wanted to conduct alone, even after hours. However, any criminal activity would be penalized to the fullest extent, especially assault. He made it very clear that no matter who was behind this, I wasn't allowed to touch a single hair on their head. It was a reasonable compromise. That night, I returned to my post. It was a lot easier without having to stay out of sight. A simple nod of acknowledgement was the only exchange I had with the officers patrolling the streets. When I made it to the school, I found no signs of life yet again. I climbed the tree and settled in for a long night. About 2 hours into my wait, I still hadn't seen any signs of a clown. My eyes were getting heavier by the minute, so I made the decision to inspect the grounds and see if I could discover anything indicating a clown might be in the area. When I jumped to the ground from the lowest branch, I was greeted by a tall figure wearing a bright, shiny blue bodysuit that was bedazzled with buttons and patterns. I'd be lying if I said I didn't fall back against the tree, gasping for air. All confidence left my body as my eyes met its face. I had been expecting a poor silicone mask, not a white human face with red lips and blue hair staring back at me. The lack of a red nose unsettled me as well. This wasn't the clown I was prepared for. I couldn't move. My body had shut down on me when I needed it most. The clown didn't move, didn't even blink. It just stared at me deeply with bright green eyes and a smile that was permanently affixed on its face. A standoff. After a few more minutes, the clown reached one of its white-gloved hands out to me. I looked to its hand and then back to those oddly bright eyes without budging an inch. Nothing about the clown had changed aside from its arm. The clown still didn't blink. It still had that smile. It nodded a couple of times towards its hand like it wanted me to grab it. I was confused, but with the hope of humanity being behind the costume, I reached out to shake the hand, the outstretched hand. Before I was able to fully lock palms with the clown, I was met with a light shock that radiated up my forearm. I screamed. The clown arched its head back, grabbed its belly and laughed at me. It sounded like there was a broken squeaky toy lodged in its throat. The electric jolt must have been enough to revitalize my body as I jumped up and shoved the clown away from me as hard as I could. It fell back in an exaggerated manner, flailing its large white shoes up and down, up and sliding on its rear end across the grass. After a brief pause and a look of disbelief, the clown began to silently cry while rotating its fists under its squinting eyes and stomping its heels into the ground. I was annoyed with the dramatics and started yelling at it. Nothing remotely coherent sound that was similar to a million cicadas clicking in a deep whisper. I couldn't hear the clown in front of me any longer. Everything was this overtaken by whatever was making the background noise. I fell back again, grasping my head in pain and attempting to cover my ears. Bang! My heart stopped. I looked up at the clown in front of me and the clown in front of me was now a Rorschach painting across the grass. My interrogating officer was standing next to me with a shotgun. "Run," he yelled at me as he grabbed my arm and yanked me to my feet. Surrounding the entire area were clowns of all shapes and sizes, walking towards us with their mouths wide open, slightly facing the ground. We barely made it to the station, navigating all the clowns that overtook the streets. It's been 38 days since that incident. We've been barricaded in the station, taking rotating shifts in the camera room. The clowns, they've taken on our everyday lives. We watch them go shopping, walk dogs, go to school and work. It's like they're trying to replace us. The only peculiar thing they do is surround the station at night and laugh in unison. All night until the sun rises. Then they continue on like nothing happened. We've got full utility access here, and have been keeping up on the news. We know it's spreading. I fear that my actions that night may have caused them to resent humans. I wanted to be the hero, but I can't find a way to stop this. Greenville is gone. Don't let the media fool you. Stay away from here. More importantly, don't go near the clowns. That one is so creepy. The worst part about it is where they start to live the lives of the people. That's really, really creepy to me. Like, what are they doing? That's really unnerving. Hello, everybody. Okay, for you guys, it has been a few seconds, but for me, it has been like 4, maybe 5 hours. My phone is absolutely knackered, and I'm waiting for my new one, the 17 Pro Max, to come. I'm currently on the iPhone 12. I just don't upgrade my phone often. I don't know, I'm not a new phone girly, but this one's knackered, like I said. And it has taken from then till now to charge from 28 to 60%. And it actually only charged about 5% up until about 40 minutes ago. I had to get my fiance's Anker power bank and fast charger to charge. The rest of the way it just wasn't working with the ordinary charger. But yeah, let's get back into it. We read Freckles, we read that one. Okay, this next story is by Monkey Sedank. It is titled "The Clown in the Desert Keeps Calling to Me." I am writing this down because I feel I am going crazy. I feel like I have nowhere else to go to talk about this. My friends don't believe me. My family, even though they won't say it, they think I've lost it. I just need someone else to indulge in this madness with me for a bit. houses, pretty decent school districts, and for my outdoor enthusiasts reading this, large open desert plains filled with mostly just shrubs and various species of cacti. I grew up in this area my whole life, went away for college to get away from the heat, but came back and got a job as a teacher at my elementary school as a 3rd grade teacher. I do think I love it here. You know, it's hard to have an objective look through all the nostalgia and that. Things get weird in the desert sometimes. Not often, but sometimes at night, things get loud. I don't really know how to explain it, just loud. Sometimes it's a comprehensible noise like random birds outside, making a cacophony of caws and calls. Sometimes it's howling winds, but sometimes it sounds closer. I remember 2 nights in high school where the noises became too much. On the first night I heard howls and cries outside. I think it was coyotes, their noises like a child screaming mixed with an injured dog's yelp. I didn't get much sleep that night. Then the next night I remember the coyotes were gone. Searching for food somewhere else in the desert, I thought. I probably could have had a good night's sleep that night until the scraping, the noise of something sharp against my bedroom wall and window, the window that led to my house's backyard, like nails on glass. I froze in bed thinking someone was just mere feet from me. The only barrier between us being my window. It went for only a few minutes, but in my panicked mind it felt to me like an eternity. When the scratching finished, I remember the other sounds even more clearly. Cracking, snapping noises like chicken bones being broken in half and dripping. Not dripping like rain off a roof, but like a low, dulcet, random few drops hitting my rocky backyard just outside my window. Then it just stopped. As soon as it started, it was finished. The only thing to fill the silence was my ceiling fan and my own thoughts. I didn't sleep that night either. The next morning, in my tired state and the bright morning sun, I found there was no sign of any scratch marks on my wall or window. All I found was a spot on the rocks that was a little darker, like some liquid that was once there had already mostly evaporated, and a small piece of what looked like latex, like a little piece of a purple balloon after it popped. I think I threw it away. Just a piece of trash that blew in at some point. Had to have been. I don't think it was just a piece of trash anymore. Not after what's been happening lately. I hear it in the sand out there. He calls me. He calls my name. It started a few weeks ago. I was woken up by it. Saturday, roughly 2 a.m., outside my apartment window, I heard it. Something no one would like to hear in the middle of the night. Deep, slow laughing. My eyes snapped open when I realized what it was. Creepy, I thought, but there's a wash, or for people who didn't grow up here, it means a dry riverbed, next to my apartment behind a wire fence and some shrubs, and my area has a problem with homeless people sometimes, so maybe one of them was in there doing the fentanyl flop or something. I thought it was creepy and weird, but mostly I felt annoyed. I was up now thanks to the laughing. I was up after a long day of trying to teach kids about best moment, but I was tired and had the protection of being up on the second floor. I kept my head out the window for a few seconds after shouting, moving it around to try and angle my eyeline the right way to see around the bush and see this freak that was laughing so early in the morning. It took a few seconds for the laughing to stop. After it stopped, I pulled my head back into my room, keeping my eyes glued to the wash, or at least what I could see of it. I hadn't closed the window yet when I heard it. Something shuffling through the bushes. I'm walking slowly away from my complex, and I mean slowly. This guy was out there moving at a snail's pace. That's when I saw it. The thing that changed this from a shitty night to one that sent ice through my veins. Something floated up past the bushes, just barely cresting the foliage. It was black, or at least some dark colour that blended into the night of the desert. It was shiny and popped up and down curiously. What the hell, I thought. A balloon. I followed it with my eyes for what felt like 10 minutes, tracing the bushes outside my apartment complex until it went around a corner and down the rest of the length of the gate that led to a more open area of the desert. It was freaky, and I had definitely gotten a little more spooked by the balloon coming out of nowhere. I remember putting on YouTube to help calm my nerves and go back to sleep after something akin to an hour-ish of staying awake scrolling through Twitter. I live alone, and the thought of some freak with a balloon outside my apartment having a grand laugh was kind of funny, but something about it freaked me out. Why hadn't anyone else woken up and told them to leave? Why did I even wake up in the first place? I'm normally such a heavy sleeper, as something that was such a low noise could have woken me up was odd. But nevertheless, the mix of random gaming news on Twitter mixed up a heavy dissection of the Alan Wake games on my TV eventually lulled me back to sleep. Things went back to normal for a few days. The weekend came and went. I saw some friends, drove 30-some minutes it takes to see my parents. The memory of the guy out my window came and passed, and eventually the memory was completely forgotten to the work week starting up. It was Thursday night when something weird happened again. I wasn't sleeping this time. Actually, I was late coming home, sometime between 11 and 11:30. I was watching a movie with my friends, and coming home from my buddy Patrick's house, I was a little late. Parking and walking to my apartment were fine, so I don't get freaked out in the parking lots at night like some people. I'm a tall white guy, 6'6", so I've never had to be afraid of walking or jogging at night. The only thing that really freaked me out was outside my apartment door. Below the apartment number room A23 and my door handle I found puddles of some clear liquid slowly seeping into the concrete outside my door. My neighbour must have dropped a water bottle leading to a spill. Must have been, needed to be. Seeing it sent me back to that night back in high school. Filled my head with the scraping noises, echoing around my skull, growing louder within the bone acoustics, until that was all I could think about, all leading to a faster heartbeat and a racing mind. You're overthinking yourself into a panic attack. Calm down and breathe, I said to myself before unlocking my door. I must need sleep. Long night, middle of the week, the kids are tiring me out. Has to be. high school for years. I had gone to college, graduated, got on a career. Why is that awful night all I could think about now, so many years later? I quickly reheated some dinner from last night, scarfed it down and ran to my bed to try and forget about this night. Once again, videos on my TV became a shelter from the amount of thoughts bouncing around my head that night. Just as I was getting ready to actually try and sleep, I felt a compulsion, the need to look out my window, back to those bushes, just beyond my little safety of the parking lot, the fence and the bushes. I fought the compulsion. I was being stupid, my night being sidetracked by just a single coincidence. But I thought about it more. Why would my neighbour have spelled right in front of my door a number plate? That didn't make any sense, and it was only a few drops, things that anyone aside from me probably would have just skipped past without a second thought. The need was too strong. I needed to move my blinds and look out there. I would have to if I wanted to sleep at all tonight, just for peace of mind. Opening the window, there it was. I sank in my bed at what it was in the parking lot staring up at me. A clown, a fucking clown, looking up at me from the parking lot. Blotchy, smeared, grease paint covered his skin. It was beginning to crack and chip on parts of the clown's fat, bloated head. The clown was a large man. He looked like he barely fit into his shiny, perfectly clean rainbow bodysuit, buttons trying their best to hold his immense shape. His hair a shitty dye job of red that left it all frazzled and dried out, going every direction but up, as the top of his head had no hair, just white, painted, cracking skin. In one hand held the strings of a few balloons, one red, two yellow, and one that made all this worse, one purple. His other hand pointed up to my window. I had just barely pulled the blinds away enough to look out there. His hand was already raised when I looked out. He had been like this for some time. All of this just being accented by his grotesque face. Plump cheeks like a baby that looked wrong on someone who had to be pushing late 50s, early 60s. Bright yellow eyes bulging out of his rounded face. He looked like he was laughing, his body shaking and rocking back and forth with the movement of his silent laughter. He wasn't making any noise from his mouth. His horrible mouth. He had no lips to hide his horrible rotten teeth, nor to stop his rampant spittle from going across the parking lot. His lipless mouth had curled back and in on itself, making it look like the clown wouldn't be able to hide his teeth, even if he closed his mouth. I sat there for what must have been hours, frozen in fear. I couldn't move. downstairs neighbour, Jerome. When I finally got my exhausted body into some real clothes and down the stairs, I accidentally knocked too loud on her door, making more of a slamming noise than the knocks I intended. He came to the door in a pair of boxers and a tank top with a look of confusion and mild anger / annoyance on his face. "Hey man, what's up? You need something?" he said. I could tell I had woken him up. "Yeah, this is gonna sound crazy. Did you see a clown last night in the parking lot?" I knew it sounded crazy, but that clown last night looked so weird, and of course he saw it. It was the thing of nightmares. He gave me a look of utter confusion. "What?" he said. Did you see a clown last night, yes or no?" I said more frantically, turning into a bit of a mad shout at the end. "No, Jesus. Look man, I'm trying to sleep, so can you go? If I see anything weird like that, I'll let you know, okay?" I nodded, the shame of what I was asking overtaking me. Maybe I was just going crazy. I mean, schizophrenia can form around 24, right? I think I read that somewhere. The scratching noise was in my brain again as I lurched my way back up to my apartment. I spent the next 2 weeks with no nightly interruptions, just my own fear of what could happen if it came back. He clearly knew where I lived. I had told my sister. She didn't believe me, called me batshit crazy, and my friends thought I was just messing around, or the stress of being a teacher had finally broken my brain. All of this got confirmed tonight, after a long day of grading papers and parent-teacher conferences. I got home to find an envelope on my table. Hanging from it was a purple balloon. I didn't get any mail today, and no one else has a key to my apartment. The envelope was a manila colour and kind of crumpled or wrinkly. There was no return address, but I knew there wouldn't be. I couldn't help myself, so I opened it. The letter reads as follows. "Dearest James, I'm so glad to have finally been able to find you. You really are oh so good at hide and seek. I was beginning to think that maybe I would lose the game, but no, I did indeed find you. Congrats on lasting the longest anyone ever has. Now we can be friends again. I know you missed hanging out with your bestest friend you ever did have. You are a very special boy. I'll come see you again soon. With love, Mr. Lipsy." The page looked like they had been dried, and I could see that there were definitely marks from where I imagined his saliva had dripped on the page. The letters were scratchy, like it was written in a hurry by someone with frantic, shaky hands. How did he know my name? What did he mean we can be friends again? What the hell is happening? Please, if you have any suggestions on what I should be doing in this situation, literally anything at all, I need help. Ever since I read that letter, the scratching noise hasn't left my head. That is really creepy. I don't know why, but the desert setting just makes it even more creepy to me. I wonder if there's a part 2. I don't think that there is. That's a shame. Okay, this next story is by ATP. It's titled, "My Family is Cursed. A clown shows up at everyone's 10th birthday, but no one ever hires one. My earliest memory of the clown is from my cousin standing around in silence, their eyes darting back and forth across the yard, while some of my aunts and uncles walked in and out of the house periodically. It was like they were all waiting for something to happen. As I jumped in the bouncy castle along with the rest of my cousins, I noticed a movement in the bushes near the gate that led into the backyard. I continued to bounce, trying to get higher each time in order to get a better look at whatever was there. Finally, I saw the clown appear from behind the bushes and watched as he unlatched the gate. I stopped bouncing and tried to maintain my balance as I watched the clown step into the yard and close the gate behind himself. I pushed my fingers through the mesh in the bouncy castle and pressed my face against it, staring at the clown as he scanned the backyard until his eyes landed on me. He stared at me for a few seconds and I stared back, not really knowing what to do. Nobody else seemed to have noticed him yet, and my cousins continued bouncing around behind me. He was short, and he wore a curly, rainbow-coloured wig. His face was white, and it seemed like his skin was naturally that pale. It didn't look like paint at all. His lips were normal-sized, but bright red, and he had a giant, round, red nose. His eyes were dark, so dark that I couldn't distinguish the pupil from the iris. He had two black lines that started above his black brows and ran down his eyelids to the tops of his cheeks, which appeared to be inflated with something. They were round and protruding, with a pink blush on them. His skin was smooth like porcelain. Sorry about my dog in the background, by the way. He's like really heavy breathing. He wore yellow polka dot pants that were held up by red suspenders and a white shirt with giant red buttons down the front, and red ruffles around the neck, chest and sleeves. He wore shiny red clown shoes, and he carried a gift bag in one hand. I don't know how long I stood there watching him, but suddenly I was being pulled out of the bouncy house by my mom. She dragged me to a table and sat me down in a chair in between herself and my dad. I continued to watch the clown as he approached my cousin Lisa and pulled out a pink balloon from a pocket in his pants. He blew up the balloon and twisted it into a dog, handing it to her. She took the balloon dog from the clown and ran to her mom, my Aunt Chelsea, who grabbed Lisa roughly and dragged her away from the clown. There was an impalpable amount of tension for the remainder of Jake's birthday party. Our parents wouldn't let us stray too far away, and the clown stayed the entire time, wandering around the yard and handing out balloon animals or honking his nose for the children. When it came time to open presents, we watched as Jake unwrapped countless video games and action figures, along with a few clothing items. Once he finished opening the last gift from a family member, the clown walked up to Jake and handed him the gift bag he had been carrying around for the entire party. I watched as Jake's mom tried to stop the clown from handing Jake the gift, while my uncle held her back. We all watched as Jake thanked the clown and opened the gift bag, taking out handfuls of tissue paper until he reached in and pulled out the gift. "It's a book," Jake said. I saw his mum sigh in relief, and Jake turned the book over in his hands, looking at it. It was a small hardcover book with a glossy dust jacket that had a drawing of a beach on it. Jake thanked the clown and it walked away from him, was gone, Jake's dad snatched the book from him. I asked about it later, but he told me his parents had thrown it out. I saw the clown a few times after that. At every cousin's 10th birthday party, he would show up in the same outfit every time and give them a hardcover picture book that their parents would get rid of. When I was 10, the same thing happened, and although I begged my parents to let me see the book, they declined. The night of my birthday party, I snuck out of my room and saw my dad go up into the attic with my book. I tried to find it a few times after that day, but he had hidden it well and it was nowhere to be seen. I once asked my parents why any of us even had birthday parties. If they were so afraid of the clown. But they told me that the clown would show up anyway. He always knew. I didn't see the clown for a couple of years. All of my cousins had passed the age of 10, and none of them were old enough to have their own children yet. When I turned 20, my parents died in a car accident and I inherited their house. By that time I had forgotten all about the clown and the book and didn't care to read it or figure out why they had taken it away. And then, about 12 years later, my daughter Wendy had her 10th birthday party. My wife knew about the clown, and we had already seen it appear once before at Jake's twins' birthday party. We had prepared Wendy and given her the same warnings my parents had given me. Be nice to the clown. About 30 minutes into the party, the clown jumped over the backyard fence and wandered over to their table where Wendy and her cousins were getting makeovers. I stopped myself from running over and stopping him. He looked exactly as I remembered him. Not a single thing had changed, not even his outfit. I watched as he caught my niece, Alice's eye, and pulled out a blue balloon from his pocket. He blew the balloon up, and then pulled out another blue one, and then used them both to form a hat, which he gently placed on her head. I watched as she thanked him and he clapped his hands together and then continued to walk around my backyard. Nobody ever tried to stop him, because we had always been warned not to. We were never specifically told what would happen if we tried, but we knew it was bad, and none of us wanted to find out what it would be. When it was time to open presents, I continued to eye the gift bag in the clown's hand. Once Wendy was done with opening the gifts given to her by family members, the clown approached her and handed her the bag. She took it gently and slowly opened it, digging around the tissue paper until she pulled out the book. "Thank you," she said, smiling at the clown. He took a bow and then walked away, jumping back over the fence. I let out a sigh of relief once he was gone, and I approached Wendy, taking the book from her. She didn't seem to mind that it was being taken. She seemed glad. I decided to hide it up in the attic, just as my parents had done with mine, but as I stared at it in my hands, curiosity was beginning to set in. It was the same as all the other books I had seen. Hardcover with a glossy dust jacket that contained a drawing on the front but no title. This one had a drawing of a girl that resembled Wendy, standing in front of a birthday cake, about to blow out the candles. She had the same girly brown hair and green eyes as Wendy. I opened the book and noticed an inscription on the inside of the cover that said, "Happy 10th, Wendy." The first page was blank, but the next page was where the story started. There was a drawing of the girl on the cover, wearing a party hat and holding a pile of gifts. Under that it read, "Today is Wendy's 10th. How happy is she? She got every gift she wants, even things she doesn't need. I turned the page as I continued to read the story that depicted various drawings of a girl that resembled my daughter, as she did various birthday activities. Wendy laughs along with her friends, and all her guests are filled with glee. Wendy tries to sneak a peek at every gift that she receives. There were drawings of Wendy with family and friends, and everyone's smiling and hugging Wendy. And then from beyond the backyard fence comes the best guest of them all, a funny clown, here to have a ball. On that page was a drawing of the clown as it jumped over the fence, grinning. This clown loves the party, and it loves 10th birthdays too. He will never miss a chance to show up where he's due. The next drawing was of the clown in the center of the page, surrounded by black. But this birthday is a bit different. Something big is going to happen. The clown is so excited. This doesn't happen often. I turned the page to see a drawing of the clown running around the party, chasing guests who appeared to be frightened. They'd been drawn with their mouths open and wide-eyed as they ran away from the clown. Wide-eyed as they ran away from the clown. The clown runs around the yard and pulls something from his pocket. Not a balloon, not a magic handkerchief, but something big and sharp and shiny. The next page had a drawing of a gleaming butcher knife dripping with blood. A lot of guests must die, but don't worry, Wendy will be fine. The next 4 pages contained various drawings of the clown slaughtering people at the birthday party. Some had their necks sliced open, some were stabbed, and some lost body parts. The clown has had his fun. His job here has been done. Happy 10th birthday to Wendy. He will see you at the next one. The last drawing was of the clown jumping back over the fence, leaving a pile of dead bodies behind him. I shut the book as a chill ran down my spine. I realized why our parents never showed us the books, especially if they were all this creepy, and I wondered why the clown would even give us these books. I decided to do as my parents had done and get rid of the book at the end of the party. As I tossed the book on top of the fridge, I heard the first scream. I ran to the door and threw it open, just in time to see everyone running away from the clown. He was back, and he stood right by the fence with a butcher knife in his hands. On the ground next to him was my cousin Paola's kid, Trevor, face down in the grass. I scanned the backyard, looking for Wendy, but she was nowhere to be seen. All the guests ran across the yard, trying to get as far away from the clown as possible. I watched as Jake tossed his children over the fence and into the neighbor's yard, followed by his husband, and then himself. I looked for my wife, and I spotted her running towards me and into the house. "Where's Wendy?" I asked her, grabbing her arm. "She jumped the fence a while ago. She's fine. We need to hide." She dragged me inside with her as the screams continued. A few more family members made it inside, and we hid in the kitchen and the living room. After a while, the screams died out, and I slowly got up, opening the door and peering out into the backyard. "He's gone," I said as I threw open the door and walked outside. There were a total of 10 dead people, and a few minutes after the cops arrived, so did Jake, his family, and Wendy. I ran to her as I saw her coming up the driveway, picking her up into my arms. "I'm so glad you're okay," I said. I kept her by my side the rest of the night as we answered questions. I didn't tell the police that I knew the clown, as they would never believe my story about the curse. Instead, we all told them that we had no idea who the clown was and that we hadn't hired anyone. Hours later, when everyone was finally gone, Wendy had gone to bed, and I went downstairs and helped my wife clean up some of the mess. Once we were done, I grabbed the book from on top of the fridge and handed it to her. "What's this?" she said. "It's what he gave her, Rose," I said as she opened it. "Read it." I waited for her to finish reading the book. Once she was done, she tossed it onto the counter. "What the fuck?" she hissed. "Did he plan all that? Is this supposed to be some stupid joke?" I shrugged. "Did this happen to everyone else?" she asked. "I don't know. Our parents never let us read these books." I replied, "This is so fucked up, David." We stood in silence as Rose grabbed the book again, giving it a disgusted look. "I'm gonna go look for something," I said suddenly. I made my way up to the attic entrance in the hall and pulled down the ladder. I slowly made my way up, each step creaking as I stood on it. When I reached the top, I flipped the switch and the lights turned on, illuminating the attic enough for me to see. I dug through countless boxes and moved old decor and furniture around until I found it. The book that had been given to me on my 10th birthday. It had been hidden under the cushion of an old chair. I pulled it out and looked at the drawing of a house with a single light on in one of the windows. I opened the book and found a similar engraving on the inside cover that read, "Happy 10th, David." I turned the pages and began to read the story, ignoring the pictures. "Today is David's 10th birthday. What a good one it will be. David eats pizza. His favourite topping is cheese. He has a water balloon fight with cousin Eric and they take cover in the trees. Everything is fun and soon it will be great. Here comes the clown. He is never late." David's birthday was a blast and his gifts were all so fun. But don't be sad that it's over. The fun has just begun. Years go by and the clown sees Dave again. It's now his daughter's 10th birthday and today the fun will end. A lot of guests had fun and for others this day was their last. But David's family is alive. Thank the clown for that. And now it's time for bed. Time to get some sleep. Don't forget to check on Wendy. She hasn't made a peep. The final drawing in the book showed an empty bed in a dark room with a window that was wide open. I stared at it for a second before it hit me. I tossed the book aside as I got a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach. Something was wrong. "Wendy," I shouted. "What's going on?" Rose called. I didn't reply as I hurried down the ladder and ran down the hall into Wendy's bedroom, throwing the door open. I flipped the light on and looked around the room, but I was too late. She was gone. Her bed was empty, and her window was wide open.